Hello and welcome to Football League World TV. We've got another club takeover show for you this afternoon, and today it is Cardiff City. My name is Sam Rourke, the chief editor of footballleague.co.uk. I'm delighted to be joined by Ben Johnsey, massive Cardiff City supporter and member of the Bluebirds podcast. How are we getting on today, Ben?
All good, all good. A lot more positive after Sunday's result as well. Quite happy, to be honest.
Yeah, very, very good result for the Bluebirds. We're going to touch on that a little bit later on in the show. But we're going to kick off this week's episode of the Cardiff City Takeover Show talking about your expectations heading into the season. So last term, it was a bit of a funny campaign. Finished 8th in the end, just missing out on the playoffs. We saw Mick McCarthy arrive at the Cardiff City Stadium and enjoyed a cracking start, didn't he? Life at the Welsh outfit, winning a load of games really in a row, and they were really pushing for that top 6 berth. But in the end, they did just miss out. Ben, with that season just gone, what were your feelings heading into this campaign? Were you optimistic?
Mildly confident. Definitely worried about how we'd play without Harry Wilson and Shea Ojo, which was sort of huge for our year last year. Last season definitely felt like a bit of a double season. McCarthy came in really well. We done well. Yeah, coming into this one, we were mildly confident. I believe we kind of had top 6 form statistically wise in the end of last year. It was kind of all about who we signed. We know we came into the season needing a backup to Kieffer more. He struggled towards the end of last season because he played sort of basically about the whole second half of the season on his own with Glatzel leaving in January. And yeah, we knew we needed the signings. Sort of that was the main thing. We didn't quite get what we wanted in the end. Sort of not really replacing who's gone out. But going into it, yeah, mildly confident and probably dreams of top 6, really.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about your start to this season now. It's been a fairly good start for Cardiff City so far this campaign. Currently sitting in 8th position. 3 wins, 2 draws and 1 loss so far for the Bluebirds. Ben, have you been content with what you've seen so far?
Yeah, definitely. It's been a positive start. Bit of an interesting one. I think we've scored 2 goals, which came on the weekend. Actually, players using their feet. The rest of them were headers and an own goal. So an interesting one, and we've definitely kind of reverted backwards in football, which was a slight concern. Though I'd say the one thing that was a slight worry was our depth. It seems we've got a really good starting 11. Some great players in there, Kieffer Moore, Ryan Giles, but we're definitely relying quite heavily on our academy and who's coming through. And while I'm always happy to see them come through, it can sometimes be a worry to be completely relying on them. There's a lot of pressure on their shoulders. Though we have had a very good start. Some performances not quite sort of up to the caliber we'd want. While we have been winning games, we're yet to score in the first half, which has been an issue, and that's something that's not necessarily going to be sustainable throughout the season. We can't always expect for players to come into their own in the second half and earn us points. So that's definitely something we've got to address. It feels like we've had a good start to the season, but unless sort of key areas are addressed, it could be something that falters and could fall apart quite quickly if we're not sort of able to address those issues sort of as soon as possible. And that mainly being the consistency in the first half, stopping ourselves conceding. And one issue we've seen for quite a while at Cardiff, as much as I love Aidan Flynn and Morrison, I mean, Lyle Taylor's caused us all sort of problems on the weekend. Having players with pace on the break is a big issue for us, and we do seem to concede from those sort of games, and that's something that also definitely needs to be addressed.
Yeah, let's just touch on Sunday's game then. You mentioned there that you do have to lean on some of them younger players within that side. We saw the likes of Sam Bowen start the game, Mark Harris as well, Joel Bagan, players that are coming through the ranks at Cardiff City, kind of being thrusted straight into that starting 11. Are you kind of content to see these sort of players playing in the starting 11, or does it come back to the fact that actually we do need some more experience, we do need some more depth in that team?
Definitely, I think I'm content. Definitely, it's great to see youngsters coming through. A couple of years ago, Warnock was one of our best managers in recent times, but the one thing he didn't really focus on was the academy. And I remember he claimed that it wasn't good enough at the time, but a lot of the players that are coming through now were in and around that academy when he was here. And yeah, I'm definitely happy to see them coming through, especially a lot of the Welsh youngsters that are coming through as well. And we've seen Colwill and Mark Harris playing for Wales in recent weeks, which has always been huge for us as for Cardiff. Having Welsh talent coming through our ranks is vital for us, really. So yeah, it's definitely a positive. The only negative with it is the balance of the nurture with the reliance of those academy players, and we want to see them get their opportunities when they're ready and not. I think the biggest one that we're putting a lot of pressure on is Joe Bagan at left back. Is at 18, I believe he's the only senior left back in our squad, with Bennett leaving and since going to Wigan. We've got one 18-year-old as our only left back. It's not the nicest to have that much pressure on him. He's definitely a really good player, and he's going to be a player for us for a long time. And he's already sort of been called up to the Northern Ireland squad. And he's a great player, but we're just putting so much pressure on him. And I'm hoping now with Colwill as well, who had a wonderful game on the weekend, that those 2 goals were absolutely outstanding, that he took the second one brilliantly. I'm hoping that we can use him well and not sort of run him into the ground. We saw with Moore last year, as I said previously, that he kind of got run into the ground in the end of the season. And I don't want to see Colwill in 10 games' time absolutely knackered because he's played every single game because we're relying on him because he starts to do well. So I want to get the balance right. But yeah, it's definitely a huge positive to see all those players coming through.
Yeah, let's just briefly touch on Mark Harris. He's a player that's been involved here and there for Cardiff this season. What have you made of him kind of playing in that more advanced role? Because from what I saw in the game, he seemed very kind of, very tenacious player, very hungry, likes to chase down them lost balls. And he seems almost perfect foil to someone like Kieffer Moore. Would you agree?
Definitely. They gel well when they're on the pitch. Harris is someone that was a bit of an anomaly, really. He was at Wrexham a couple of years ago, struggling to get in their side in non-league, and he's really just come into his own in the last 18 months. Started, to be fair to Harris, under him, was getting a few games, and he's really becoming a fan favourite now. I mean, his game against Forest was outstanding. I think you take Colwill out of it, he was the man of the match for me, 100%. He ran the channels brilliantly, and even for Colwill's second goal, he made a perfect dummy run, which took the defender out of the game and left Colwill the space he needed to take that shot. And I think I'm so happy to see Harris getting his opportunity for Cardiff and for Wales as well, having been played for them for the last couple of weeks. He's really made an impact, and he's been a player that's been in and around. A lot of the Cardiff fans have known about him for a few years. He made his debut almost 3-4 years ago now. And I don't think you'd necessarily consider him as one of the academy kids anymore. He's should be starting for Cardiff week in, week out now for me.
Absolutely. Any Cardiff City fans, if you are watching this show, please do get involved. Send in your comments, send in your opinions. We will bring them up on this live stream. Right, let's touch on Mick McCarthy next. As we said at the start of the show, we saw Mick McCarthy come in to replace Neil Warnock last term. Enjoyed a really fast start as manager of the Welsh club, but kind of did fade away a little bit during the latter end of last season. But a pretty impressive start, you could say, for Mick McCarthy. Ben, let's go straight back to when that appointment was announced. I mean, I looked at the reaction from the Cardiff City fans. It seemed relatively mixed. At the same, at one point you're getting a manager who's got plenty of experience at this level in this league. And at the same time, we saw what happened with him at Ipswich. Perhaps that the football wasn't as glamorous as many Cardiff City fans would like to have seen. I mean, how have you found Mick McCarthy's time at Cardiff City so far? And what was your initial reaction to when he was appointed?
Well, with my initial reaction, when I first saw him become the favourite with the bookies, I think everyone kind of lost their mind at the first thought of him coming in. The smoke kind of cleared and everyone... I'd say a majority. There was still some people not happy with his appointment, but I'd say a majority sort of changed their mind a bit, understood the position we were in. I mean, when he came in, I think we'd lost 7 on the bounce. We were 3 points off Rotherham in the relegation zone, and I believe Rotherham actually had a game in hand on us as well. So we were actually kind of keeping an eye on that bottom three, thinking if we don't make the right appointment here and it goes wrong, we could really be slipping into that. And it was a worry for us. So he definitely came in as a manager to steer the ship. I don't think many expected for him to do quite as well as he did, and therefore then be on for further seasons, because he originally signed a 6-month deal. And yeah, when he came in, he was absolutely outstanding. We won, I think it was 5 or 6 games on the bounce then after losing 7 in a row. And that's why it really did feel like 2 seasons. We felt like we had almost straight into a top 6 race then. And it really was good to see. The football was never really going to be exciting. The Cardiff have always kind of been that brand of football for the last few years. And that's definitely something we want to change in the future, though it just wasn't the time. There was dreams of the likes of Craig Bellamy and people to maybe come in and have a bit of a Cardiff star, former Cardiff player being at the helm. It would have been great, but it would have been just such a big risk at that point to appoint someone like that. And then if it goes wrong, risk being in League One, because that really would be hard to come back from. And in the end, we all of a sudden we were in a top 6 race, which just took a lot of us by surprise. I think we beat Bournemouth and we actually sat in 6th at one point. And yeah, it did kind of dwindle a little bit. We kind of went off form and lost a few. Ended up losing to Forest at one point as well, and it did dwindle a little bit. But I think that was mainly just not down to McCarthy. It was mainly down to, as I said previously, more really just was the squad was quite tired. We were lacking depth. We had lost Glatzel and didn't really replace players in January, which has been a concern in the last couple of windows, that we're not quite replacing players that are leaving. And I think the squad just kind of packed out a little bit, and we needed some more bodies in there, and that was what we were hoping for in the transfer window now. But I'd say the aura around McCarthy at the minute is quite positive. The issue is with that style of football, when you're winning, it's great and it can be quite consistent, but then when you lose, it seems to just be that much worse, because it's just so much more frustrating. And it's when it's that style of football and you're not then actually doing anything with it, it's just a horror to watch. So sometimes people can react badly in that way, but I would say it's pretty positive around McCarthy at the moment.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's a very good point. And the fact that, when the football isn't necessarily attractive or glamorous, it's very, very easy to kind of use that as a scapegoat, isn't it? When it comes to when you're in a bad run of form. Right, we've got a few comments coming in from people that are watching the show. As I said earlier on in the show, please do send in your opinions, your comments. We will get it up and we'll discuss it. We've had a message from Sam Neelan on YouTube. I just can't see us being able to compete with the big guns this season without a proper 10. We haven't replaced Wilson, in my opinion. Ben, what do you make of that?
Correct, I would say. We haven't replaced him. I think this is where we're hanging our hat a bit too much on Colwill. As much as I like him, as much as I want to see him come through, to expect him to come in now and replace Harry Wilson, who has been a top championship player and even a Prem player in recent years. Yeah, definitely. It's a worry. We've had a good start, but we're yet to really face a Fulham, a West Brom, someone like that. It's going to be hard, and it's sort of waiting to see how we do in those games. There's definitely a worry that we could go into those games and just really get picked apart. And if something was to happen to the likes of Giles, Colwill, or Moore, it definitely seems like we're worrying sort of where the goals are coming from. And that was one point, is that with Murphy going on the final day of deadline day, which didn't really make much sense for him to go. I look at that squad and I wonder where the goals are going to come from. We've seen 2 from Colwill, which is great. He's obviously shown he's got more of a finish on him. But the likes of Mark Harris and Giles, as much as I like them and they're great players, they're not necessarily prolific goal scorers. And it is a worry that if Moore is to get injured at one point this season, it could feel like it could be a season ender for us. So definitely I agree. Our squad depth there is horrible, and we haven't replaced Harry Wilson. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got another comment in on the topic of Ryan Giles. Sky Blues Fan TV, how good a signing has Ryan Giles been? Obviously, a player that Coventry City fans will know well, given he spent some time on loan at the Sky Blues. Ben, just how good do you think Ryan Giles has been?
Absolutely outstanding, really. Probably one of our players of the season so far. I think he's come in, he's had four assists already. He's one of the highest crosses in the league by quite a way. he kind of transitioned when he came in. We were expecting him to be a bit of a left wing back, maybe a replacement for Bennett, though that's in one or two preseason games, it was quite clear that he was better off being pushed up the pitch, and he's come in as a bit of a winger now. And yeah, he's done very well. He's done very well from a creativity point of view. He's been real crucial for us this season, and we're going to be hoping we can keep him fit throughout the season. And one worry is that January transfer window where Wolves could be looking at bringing him back if he continues to be as good as he is, because he has been just actually outstanding for us.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, Ben, it seems his crossing ability is among the best I've seen in the league. It seems every single cross he whips into that box, someone, Kieffer Moore or Aidan Flynn, always tend to be on the end of it. So, yeah, a really, really promising start there for Ryan Giles. As I said, please do send in your comments. It really is appreciated. Right, let's now touch on Aidan Flynn, who's had a cracking start to the season. Aidan Flynn, often associated with being a goal-scoring defender. We've seen it in the past with his time at Bristol City and Middlesbrough, but he's really started this season in great goal-scoring fashion. 4 goals already for the centre-back at the Bluebirds. I mean, Ben, just how important is Aidan Flynn from both an attacking sense and a defensive sense?
Huge, absolutely huge. He's really come into his own, and he was a player that, to be honest, I thought he was going to be one of those horror signings we look back on. He went on loan to, I believe it was Sheffield Wednesday last season in the first half. And we didn't think he really had a Cardiff career ahead of that. There was a bit of a cryptic Instagram post as well, sort of pointing that he wasn't quite happy with the move. And yeah, he's really coming to his own, and he's a fan favourite now. I think it all kind of started at that goal against Swansea, which if you score against Swansea for a Cardiff player, you're always going to be a fan favourite. But yeah, he's absolutely outstanding as a defender, and going forward, he just looks so dangerous. And I really wouldn't put it past him to get into double digits this season, because every single time we put a ball in, he's getting his head on it one way or another. And even at the Forest game, he brought a couple good saves out of their keeper, and really was dangerous. And he's just so tall and manages to get on the end of everything. So both attacking and defending, he's going to be crucial for us this season. But he just seems one of those players that fits in with the dressing room. He seems really close with Sean Morrison, and both of them at the back are very good. They're good in a back three with Curtis Nelson alongside them. They seem to gel quite well there. And yeah, he's absolutely outstanding. And I think if Mozza wasn't there, Flint would probably be our captain.
Yeah, absolutely. Them 3 at the back do seem very formidable, very commanding back line, it's fair to say, at Cardiff City. Right, let's touch on the start of the show on Sunday for Cardiff. It was, of course, Rubin Colwill, who came off the bench in the second half alongside Kieffer Moore and really made a difference for the Bluebirds in that second half. And ultimately, it was Colwill's brace that won the game for the Welsh side. We spoke about Colwill a little bit on this show so far, Ben, but I mean, have Cardiff fans got really high hopes for Colwill in this season and moving forwards?
Definitely. He's probably sort of one of the most accredited youngsters we've had since Ramsey. He's absolutely outstanding. But he kind of came from nowhere. Not many people know this. Just over a year ago, he was actually almost released by Cardiff while he was in the under-18s. He seemed when he was playing in the under-18s, he was coming off the bench for them about a year ago and wasn't really looking like he was going to be a Cardiff player going forward. But just something seemed to click for him. And within about 6 months, he was in the under-23s. Cardiff fans slowly started to hear about him as he was doing well for them. And the next thing you know, he's making his debut, and we've got this just good player on our hands. And we didn't still quite get to see much of him. I mean, it was quite a surprise for him to go to the Euros because he'd still only played probably about a full 90 minutes sort of over a few games for us. And yeah, it was quite a surprise to see him go. We still really hadn't seen much of him ourselves. And I think that Forest game for us was that, right, this is what all the managers and backroom staff and everyone was talking about when they're saying that this kid really is a special talent. Because as much as we'd heard it, if you hadn't really watched much of the under-23s, you hadn't seen it. And that was the first sort of breakout for him to show, right, this is what I can do. And yeah, it really was 2 outstanding goals from him. The first one was just sort of good positioning. Him and Moore linked up well, fell to him, and he found the back of the net. That's all you can really ask for. And then the second one was just showed his class. Mark Harris making that dummy run, came to him, and he finished it. It was really, really good composure from someone of that age. And yeah, he really has come into his own. He looks a presence on the pitch as well. I mean, he's very, very big for a number 10. And I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe transitioned into more of a second striker or a number 9 if he can sort of get his finishing down and start scoring more goals like he did. But yeah, definite really good young player for Cardiff, and it's one that's very exciting for the future.
Yeah, I must admit, I was really impressed with that second goal on Sunday. The way, that composure to slot it comfortably into that bottom left-hand corner, and the way he drove forward with the ball with real confidence was really impressive for a player that is so young. So, yeah, much to be excited about. You do feel for Rubin Colwill at Cardiff. Right, let's talk about arguably Cardiff City's best player. That man being Kieffer Moore, obviously had a fantastic campaign last season, scoring 20 goals in the Championship for Cardiff City. A real presence up front, and he's really come into his own at the Cardiff City Stadium since arriving. We'll come to you, Ben. Now, there was a lot of transfer speculation regarding Kieffer Moore over the summer transfer window. I mean, we exclusively reported it at Football League World that Wolves were very, very keen on signing Kieffer Moore. A £7 million bid was rebuffed, we understood, over the summer for the player. Were you surprised that Kieffer Moore hung around at Cardiff?
Not necessarily surprised, just very happy. It was one of those things that you wouldn't be surprised if he stayed, wouldn't be surprised if he left. He seems to like it at Cardiff. It obviously works well for him getting into the national side. Though there was a worry that if someone was to come in for a sufficient offer, you really couldn't blame him for taking that chance at Premier League football. Quite happy to see that other teams maybe don't quite rate him as highly as we do and don't maybe value him as highly as we do, because otherwise he could have been going on that deadline day. And that really would have been a worry. I probably would be on this show now talking about maybe a mid-table finish or lower if he wasn't here. He really is just so vital, as we saw. The minute he came on for that game on Sunday, he and Colwill obviously got the goals, but Moore just completely changed it. He got arguably assists for both goals and also hit the post at one point as well. He's such a danger man, and there's not really a player like him. And I think that's the issue, is that if he was to go, we couldn't replace him. There isn't a striker like Kieffer Moore that he's so big and such a good target man, but he's also quick, good with the ball at his feet, and just offers this dynamic of a player. He kind of just hits every target and ticks every box. He's such an outstanding player, and I think that's why every Cardiff fan would say he's the best striker in the division, because he really, really is just a huge player for us. And he made our season last year. I mean, those 20 goals were so important, and they weren't sort of goal fillers either. A lot of them was game-changing goals, and he's just such a key player for us. The day he does eventually leave definitely will be a sad one for Cardiff fans.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what strikes me most about him is, given he is so tall, he's such a presence up front, the fact he is so good with the ball at his feet, some of the little flicks and little turns he does, you wouldn't think he is the size he is with some of the stuff he does on the ball, which like you say, there aren't many strikers that, that size and that presence that can do that sort of thing. So yeah, definitely a big player for Cardiff City for sure. Let's get your prediction, Ben, for how many goals you think Kieffer Moore will score this season for Cardiff.
I think he could hit 20 again easily. So I'd say probably around the 20 goal mark. He's definitely going to be his target this year. And I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, there was points last season he was scoring a goal a game. I actually think he started the season like he played about 15 games, had only scored 4 or 5 goals, and then just something seemed to click. He really then came into his own again, and it was just scoring goal after goal for us, and really, really made our season. If he wasn't there in that first half of the season last year, we really could have been in that relegation scrap. He's just such a good goal scorer, and what he brings to the club is massive. So yeah, definitely 20 again, I would say.
Yeah, I certainly would not put it past him to score 25 goals this season for sure. A really, really important player for Cardiff City. Right, let's touch on one of your summer signings. We obviously saw Perry Ng arrive at Cardiff City from Crewe Alexandra. Obviously very highly rated at Crewe, was a real consistent figure in that Crewe team for many years. He's slotted in relatively seamlessly from what I've seen. How impressed have you been, Ben, with Perry Ng's impact in these early advances of the season?
Yeah, he came in. He came in January, and he was sort of originally sort of brought in, we were looking at maybe being a backup. We were going to be signing. I'm going to probably botch his name. I think it's Gilbert from Aston Villa, the right back. We were going to be signing him alongside him. That ended up sort of not coming through, and Perringy was kind of thrown into being our first team player. But yeah, he definitely shows to be a player that's made over 150 EFL appearances. He's assured. He never really looked like he had to adapt. He just came straight in. Sort of that last 6 months, he was really crucial on that right hand side. He was absolutely brilliant, and he offers quite a good balance in being able to go forward as well. He came close to scoring a couple of screamers. He can hit the ball quite well, and his crossing can be quite on point as well. He started this season a little slower than last year. Sang ended up kind of taking that number one spot for a bit, but it seemed to almost light a fire into Perringy again, and he's kind of come back into his own the last couple of games. And he did play very, very well against Forest as well. A very good performance from him. They made some good crosses, and I saw a couple of times they got through on that side, and he made some good last ditch tackles again. And he's a Cardiff player, really. He's quite brass. Will get in there. Will get stuck in, and can really sort of ruffle some feathers as well. So yeah, definitely happy with Perringy, and I can see him being a regular for Cardiff and one of those fan favourites that we look back on in years to come.
Yeah, like you say, certainly not afraid to ruffle some feathers, is he? He's very very tenacious, isn't it? Right back, likes to get involved, and at the same time, he has got some. He does like to drive forward with the ball and create things moving forward. So again, looks like a very good signing for Cardiff. Right, let's touch on your next Championship fixture. Tomorrow night, Cardiff travel to Coventry City to face off against the Sky Blues, who themselves have had a really, really impressive start to the season. They currently reside in 6th position in the Championship table, and their home form this season in particular has been really, really impressive. Ben, how are you feeling ahead of this one? This could be quite a tough one, couldn't it?
It's going to be an interesting one because it's kind of sort of battle of the points, because our away form has actually sort of been our sort of biggest plus as of late. I believe we're the highest in the EFL for away points for a number of times. So it's going to be an interesting one, though. I'd say Coventry are probably our biggest test so far this season. They've had a real good start, and they're going to be a real hard team to beat at home. So it's definitely going to be not the easiest game for Cardiff, and this game now is going to be where we are going to have to address those issues of scoring in the first half and not let their players get in on the break. They have got some really good attacking players in there, so we're just going to have to sort of give it our best shot. I think we're going to probably have to grind out a win if we do. I don't think it's going to be the biggest of score lines. I'd probably go for around about a 1-0 win to Cardiff. I think that's going to be my prediction for it.
Yeah, I think you'd certainly take that for sure. I think one player that Cardiff will need to keep tabs on is Callum O'Hare for Coventry City. That the attacking midfielder, very, very good player on the ball. I think the likes of Marlon Pack could be quite important for Cardiff, in particular, containing him tomorrow night. But that concludes this week's episode of the Cardiff City Fan Takeover. Ben, thanks so much for joining us on this week's show. As I said at the start of the show, you can find Ben's work on the Bluebirds podcast. You can find them on Twitter. Do check them out if you are a Cardiff City supporter. A very, very good podcast, and one you should definitely subscribe to. If you haven't subscribed to FLW TV on YouTube, please do. We appreciate all the likes, all the shares, and all the new subscribers. But that wraps up this week's show, and we will speak soon.